Glad to see you all back. Lessons from the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus' first public sermon that's recorded in the Bible for us. And we're going to finish up chapter 5 today. The Sermon on the Mount is found in Matthew chapter 5, 6, and 7. And we're going to finish up chapter 5 today and quit when we get that done. We've titled, if we had to give a topic to what we've done so far, chapter 5 is the topic of citizenship in the kingdom of heaven, or the kingdom of God. Citizenship, where Jesus told his followers the characteristics of the people that are going to be living in the kingdom of heaven, that are going to be members of the kingdom of heaven. Their personal characteristics, the Beatitudes, the meek, the humble, the pure in spirit, these are the characteristics of the citizen of the kingdom. And then he talked a while about their influence, salt and light. And remember what we said about that? Salt doesn't do any good if it stays in the salt shaker. You got to go out and shake it on something. So we need to get out of our building and go be salt and be light in the world. Salt's not going to preserve meat unless it's put on it. And we're not going to save anybody unless we put the salt on them. So that's the influence. And then he talked about the relationship of the old law and the new law, and assured all these people, because the audience he has when he's talking up on the mountain are Jewish people who have studied the law of Moses all their life. They know the law, what it says. And so he assured them that nothing is going to pass away from the old law. We're not going to destroy any of it. It's all going to be there, but we're going to add this little bit extra to it. And he talked about some extra things between the Old Testament and New Testament. And he ends the 5th chapter of Matthew by giving 6 rules of a Christian's behavior and our relationships with other people as we're out in the world. Because we need to be out in the world to be our salt and light. And he's talking about the relationships and the way we're supposed to behave when we're out in the world. And we call these deeper demands we covered 3 last week. Deeper demands for the citizens of the kingdom. That's us. Number 1 we talked about last week was avoiding anger. Jesus said, you're not supposed to murder. But he says, we're going to talk about anger. Vivian asked me a question after class. She says, does this include traffic? Sorry to say, yes, it does. Road rage is not a good thing for Christians either. I know Keegan says he has trouble with this too. I have trouble with this too. People who stay in the yield lane until the very last second and then try to nose in front of you, and I've been sitting in the proper lane all this time. Just smile at them, and say, there's probably a reason that they're doing that. But yes, road rage is covered in that too. Avoiding anger. We as Christians are not to let anger cause us to sin. I'm glad the verse is in the Bible that says, be ye angry and sin not, because everybody's going to get mad once in a while. Number 2 we talked about was avoiding lust. In reference to Jesus quoted the scripture about, thou shalt not commit adultery, but everything else is fine. And so he said, no. Lust is just as bad as adultery. And what was our solution to avoiding lust? Ray Stevens. Don't look, Ethel. That's the easiest way to avoid it. Sometimes we just have to shut our eyes and turn around, and because fashions nowadays are ridiculous. But he talked about avoiding lust. Number 3 we looked at was faithfulness in marriage. And the reason he's talking about faithfulness in marriage, because it can lead to adultery. And they had stretched the law so far that as long as there was no physical act, everything was fair game. He said, no, that's not so. A Christian's view of God's original intent is what he talked about between a man and a woman. And he gives God's only reason for divorce. Remember that we mentioned that God put number 3 immediately after number 2. If we avoid the lust, we won't have the problem of adultery. It all starts with a simple look. So we talk about faithfulness in marriage. I don't know if you noticed on the front of the bulletin this morning, somebody must have thought our quote, I always have the little Bible scripture right down here. The little scripture today says, "Be not rash with your mouth, nor let your heart be hasty to utter a word before God. For God is in heaven and you're on the earth. Therefore, let your words be few." Sometimes we just let our mouth overload us, don't we? Because we don't let our words be few. So they were thinking about us when they put out the bulletin this morning. Avoid anger, avoid lust, faithful in our marriage. Brings us to number 4, honest speech and oaths. Matthew chapter 5, verses 33 through 37. "Again you have heard that it was said to those of old, You shall not swear falsely, but shall perform your oaths to the Lord. But I say to you, do not swear at all, neither by heaven, for it is God's throne, or by earth, for it is his footstool, nor by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great King. Nor shall you swear by your head, because you cannot make one hair white or black. But let your yes be yes, and your no be no. For whatever is more than these is from the evil one." You can't make your hair black or white. I see some in here that wish they even had hair. But when it turns gray, that's a good thing. We can't change it. Miss Clairol might help for a while, but we can't change the real hair. The religious teachers of that day were not only they were permissive in their anger, lust, and faithful to marry, but they were permissive in their teaching about oaths. Oaths were very important in the time of the Bible. Back then, they were more fortunate than we are. They didn't have that many lawyers, and lawyers didn't write binding contracts between people. People made their promises and their deals with one another, and they agreed to them with an oath, which was witnessed by somebody else. The Old Testament had a lot to say about oaths, which were usually vows made to the Lord or in the Lord's name. So the Pharisees developed elaborate rules for making oaths. They said, okay, here's the rules about oaths. One, if the oath included the Lord's name, when you say, as the Lord is my witness, I will, if you included his name in it, it was binding. And you couldn't break it if you put his name in there. But then they had the other part. If you make your oath by anything else, it's good if you keep the oath, but you really don't have to. And that's the way they treated things back then. It could be broken without a whole lot of consequence. The only way you could make sure the oath was fulfilled was to take somebody to court. Because I didn't certain that I was going to do this. Jesus says, don't swear at all. Don't swear at all. He tells them that the reasons they had been given or the rules about oath are totally irrelevant. To a member of God's kingdom, it doesn't matter whether God's name is in the oath or it's not. He gives several examples. He says, the heavens are God's, the earth's God's, everything else is God's. So if you're swearing on the heavens, you're including Him in there because it's His. No matter how we phrase it, God is everywhere. The heavens and the earth are His. Everything that's in it is His. So if we make an oath of any kind at all, God is involved in it. Even there's our name by God. He knows how many are there. We don't. A vow, according to Jesus, is binding, no matter what words we use to make it. As little kids, we made pinky swears, right? We link our pinkies together. Oh, we couldn't break that one. That's a pinky swear. Yeah, it's binding if we promise to do something. The real implication of God's law was that we keep our promises. Christians are people. We're people of our word. That makes a vow unnecessary. That's why He says, don't swear at all. It's unnecessary. You're a Christian. You're an honest person. You're a man of your word. So, unnecessary. Our yes is yes, and our no is no. Jesus said, do not swear at all. That can be a slippery slope for some of us, or a tricky one. Have any of you ever been called to court to be a witness in court? I have. When you're there, they ask you to raise your right hand and ask you a question. And y'all ever know what that question is? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Now this verse says don't swear at all. What does a Christian do where you're standing in court and you got your right hand up? I don't think they even used to make you put your hand on the Bible while you're doing this. What does a Christian do? Hello, Walls. Affirm. Okay, I've heard that. I affirm. Okay. Or use some other phrase. That's just semantics. It's the same thing. I promise. I affirm. I swear. It's all the same thing. That yes, I agree, and I'm going to do the statement you just made. That's not what Jesus is talking about. For a Christian, we should be glad to stand up in court and say, yes, sir, I will. I'm going to tell the truth and nothing but the truth. I wonder what they'd do if we added the little things to, yes, I'm going to tell the truth because I'm a Christian. What do you think the court would do? But that's what Jesus says we are. We're honest people. Yes is yes, no is no. That's my take on it. I've been in court and they've asked me, and I said, yes, I'll tell the truth. A statement of what I am, who I am. I'm an honest person. I'm going to tell the truth. You don't need to ask me that question. I'm an honest person. You have a different opinion on that, but that's mine. Any comments on that? Is it okay to agree with them? Yeah, I agree with that. I'll tell the truth. I'm a Christian. And see what the prosecuting attorney or something says. Okay. That's not what Jesus is talking about. Not talking about promising to tell the truth. Because he says our yes is yes, our no is no. Jesus talking here in this about contracts. Contracts and agreements made between people. We, as citizens of the kingdom, are supposed to be honest all the time. Promising to be honest in court should go without saying. But if the court wants to hear it, yep, I'll tell the truth. That's my take on it. Anybody disagree with that? I'm not sure, but they might even call you, as contempt of court if you say, nope, I'm not going to promise that. Or I'm not going to swear that. Wouldn't go over real well. Just say, I'm a Christian. I'll tell the truth. I promise. Number 5. Remember, we said there's 6 demands he make. Number 5, turn the other cheek and second mile service. Matthew chapter 5, verses 38 through 42. You have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I tell you not to resist the evil person. But whoever slaps you on your right cheek, turn the other one to him also. If anyone wants to sue you and take away your tunic or your coat, let him have your cloak also. Give him the shirt off your back. And whoever compels you to go 1 mile, go with him 2. Give to him who asks you, and from him who wants to borrow from you, do not turn away. This is probably one of the toughest teachings of Jesus for us to accept a lot of times, isn't it? We're not people who like to be slapped. We're not people who like to be taken advantage of. That's not human nature. This is one of the most admired and at the same time one of the most resented statements ever made by Jesus. When the judges of Israel in his time decided a case, they followed the principle of exact retribution. Punishment was to fit the crime. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Retribution. The quotation that Jesus uses comes straight out of the Old Testament. Exodus 21:24. If any harm follows, then you shall give life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, and more. But there's the eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. He's quoting directly from the Old Testament law. But Jesus tells us to love both an evil person, do not resist an evil person, and our enemies as well. But the Pharisees stretched this principle of direct retribution from the civil courts where it's intended to be, because he's talking about the court here. Whoever wants to sue you and take away your tunic and all this. He's talking about this is court proceeding. This is dealings, between people on legal matters. But the Pharisees wanted to stretch this into the realm of personal relationships where it doesn't belong. They extended it to include revenge. Revenge. Not a good thing. This law does not apply to our personal relationships. The law that says an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, that does not apply to personal relationships. I get mad at John, I can't knock his block off. Nope, doesn't apply this one. God's law does not condone retaliation, payback, or revenge. That's not our job. What does God's law say about how we're supposed to treat other people? Love everybody. Love your neighbors. Love your family. Love the people you go to church with. And love bad people. Love enemies. He doesn't, draw a line somewhere and say, this is good. This is not good. Nope. Love everybody. That's our law we live under now. We cannot do retaliation, revenge, payback time. It's not ours. He's talking about going to court. When he says not to resist an evil person, he says, just get it over with. Settle the matter quickly, even if it means you're going to lose some of your worldly possessions. If they want to take away your shirt, give them your coat too. It's just things. Don't be an argumentative, resistful person. Be a loving person. Like I say, a hard teaching that we don't like to. We're not people that like to deal with not payback. Yes, Julia. Okay. Teach me. Most people are right here. I don't like to be backhanded either. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Then turn the other cheek and say, if you want to insult me, if you want to humiliate me, get this one too. The other side too. Not necessarily don't defend yourself in a violent situation, more of if someone's offending you or insulting you, don't retaliate, don't strike back. Take it. Start throwing insults their way. Just take it and understanding that it would not be a loving thing to do to retaliate. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, a right-handed, yeah. But if they're going to hit you on your right cheek with their right hand, it's going to be more like an insult. Don't. It doesn't apply to left-handed people. No, it applies to everybody, whether you're right-handed or left-handed. The point is that we don't retaliate, we don't get even, we don't pay back. That's not what we're doing. Matthew 5:41, verse 41 in here. I preached a sermon on this a few months ago, the one and only time they've ever let me preach it on Matthew 5:41. If anyone compels you to go 1 mile, go with him 2. Second mile service, we call that. This particular phrase he threw in here probably made a lot of impression on those people he was talking to. because Israel at this time was under Roman rule. The Romans controlled Israel, and the Jews didn't like it. One of the laws that the Romans enacted on them was 1 mile. If a Roman citizen or a Roman soldier told you to carry their load for them, do something for them, you had to do it, or you got arrested and put in jail. You had no choice. The Romans weren't totally, without feeling. Their law says you got to do it for 1 mile. 1 mile. You've all heard the term milepost, right? A lot of people back then went down the road from their house 1 mile, 4,560 or 5,280 feet, 1,760 yards, and they drove a post in the ground. And they put their name on it. That's my milepost. If anybody wants me to carry their load, I go to that post, I stop, I throw it down, I have fulfilled the law. And the Jews hated that law that the Romans could make them do. You notice it uses the word compel. It doesn't say if anybody nicely asks you, would you help me? No, if they say, you pick up my pack and let's go. You didn't have a choice. But you only went 1 mile, throw it down. And when Jesus tells them, if they compel you, if they force you to go 1 mile, go 2. That probably scared those Romans to death when the person just kept on walking past his milepost. You drive down the interstate, you see the post every mile, right? Tink, 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 the milepost. That's where that came from, was from the law that the Romans passed back then. 1 mile. We know how far that is. So when he throws this in there, that if anybody forces you, compels you to do something for them, go 2 miles. Do a little bit more for people than you have to do. 2nd mile service means I'm going to do something for you that I didn't have to do. And I'm going to do it without complaining, without griping. It's a great principle to follow in all our dealings with other people. Do more than is required from us. Christians are commanded to be helpful people. If someone really is in need and we've got the ability to help them, do it. At the last, he throws in 1 too, says, give to him who asked you, and from him who wants to borrow from you, do not turn away. You ever loaned money to people? You ever loaned anything to people? Yep, we've all been asked that. Personally, I never loan money to anybody. I've had a lot of people ask me for a loan. I give it to them. You need $5? Here it is. This is not a loan. You do not have to pay me back, but if you want to, that's fine. And almost in every case where I've done this to people, they've gone out of their way to pay me back. When you tell them this isn't a loan, I'm just going to give it to you. I don't loan money. I give it away. I'm free from it. Not mine anymore. Whatever you do with it, that's your business. If you want to pay me back, great. If not, you're still my friend. I still like you. You can still like me. A wise person, my dear old pappy, rest his soul, told me many years ago, when you loan money or sell a car to a friend or neighbor or family, you're going to lose one or the other. You're either going to lose the money or you're going to lose the friend. I learned this a long time ago. Loan money, you're going to lose one or the other, the money or the friend, because suddenly there's a debt between you. But if you tell them, I'm not going to loan it to you, I'm going to give it to you. There, it's yours. They'll go out of their way to pay you back. That's just the way I deal with it. Works for me. That's not to say they pay me back every time. Sometimes I've lost the money, but they needed it. If they needed it and I could help them and I had it, fine. I'll give you the money. Not going to loan it to you. Works for me. Any comments on that? On turn the other cheek and second mile service and loaning money. Yes, Ralph, I saw your hand.
And a bond that you only can resolve by turning that loan into a gift.
Yeah.
And when you turn it into a gift, it's all to them for your benefit.
Right. When you just give it to them as a gift, what he's saying, that when you loan somebody money, it becomes a contract. It becomes a contract. Loans got to be repaid. When we bought our house, we went down and got a loan. We have to repay it. It's a contract. But when we just gift it to somebody, it's up to them whether they want to do anything with it or not. Yes?
Make that loan due, boys feel obligated to do something for that loan commitment. That's why when you turn it into a gift, it is just that.
It creates an obligation. If it's a loan, when it's a gift, it's a gift. Don't worry about it. I can spare this. I mean, how many of us can't spare $5 or $10, if somebody really needs it? If they need it, give it to them. Don't need it back. Easy way to handle it. We don't need a lawyer to write up a contract. I remember the first time I loaned money to somebody, before I remembered what my dad told me many years ago, I loaned a man I worked with some money. His mother-in-law had died up north, and he needed to buy his wife a plane ticket to go up to his mother's funeral, and I loaned him the money for it. Do you know he quit talking to me? He avoided me like the plague, and he was a friend of mine before that. And after that, if he saw me coming, he would walk the other way because he knew he owed me money, and he never paid it back. Okay. I paid to get his wife to her mother's funeral. Good. I felt good about that. But I lost a friend. It's not worth it. Just give them the money. Any more comments? Second mile service. Do more than people ask you. Surprise some people. Do some things for them. Number 6. Love your enemies. Woo! Love your enemies. There was a comedian many years ago that said, love your enemies, drive them nuts. They can't handle that one. Matthew 5:43 through 47. You have heard that it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies. Bless those who curse you. Do good to those who hate you. Pray for those who despitefully use you, that you may be sons of your Father in heaven. Now, what are we talking about in this whole discussion of the 5th chapter? Citizens of the kingdom of heaven. And he says that you may be sons of your Father in heaven. That was a promise on one of the Beatitudes. What? You may be called children of God. For he makes his sun rise on the evil and on the good. He sends rain on the just and the unjust. For if you love those who love you, what reward have you? Do not even the tax collectors do the same? And if you greet your brethren also, what do you more than the others? Do not even the tax collectors do so? Boy, he picks on tax collectors a lot, doesn't he? You know who's writing this down? Matthew. What was Matthew's occupation? Tax collector. And he writes this down, knowing that, boy, Jesus picks on tax collectors a lot, and that are me. So he's talking to me here. And he wrote it down for us. Do not even the tax collectors do so. Teachers of the law just love to quote Leviticus 19:18. But you shall love your neighbor as yourself. I am the Lord. That left everybody out except their neighbors. That's in the Bible. That's in Scriptures. Love your neighbors as yourself. In order to make this command easier to obey, the rabbis of that day defined a neighbor. Now, here's their definition of a neighbor: a fellow Jew, a person of my own religion, a person who belongs to my race, and one who embraces my own religion. That's my neighbor. That was their definition of it. Well, I can do that pretty well. That's not real hard, is it? And if I do that, if I love my neighbors, I can hate everybody else. Anybody that's different from me. Jesus contradicted that just right up and down. He says, no. I say to you, love your enemies. Bless those that curse you. Do good to those who hate you. Pray for those who despitefully use you. He says that his followers are to love their enemies. Our neighbor is not necessarily a member of our own race or our own religion. Our neighbor in Jesus' eyes is simply a human being, any human being who's in need. Our duty is to love them, friend, neighbor, enemy, people we don't even know, love them. And what does he said do? What's the last part? And pray for those who despitefully use you. Pray for them. Do you pray for your enemies? If there's somebody that you don't like, that doesn't like you, do you pray for them? Pray for your enemies. One thing that I've learned in my life, and learned the hard way, it's hard to hate somebody that you're praying for. If I'm praying for Don back there, it's hard to hate him when I just prayed a prayer and said, bless him, be good to him. It's hard to hate somebody you're praying for. So if there's somebody you're having a squabble with, put them in your prayers. And it's really hard to hate them after that. The best example of this was Jesus himself. Luke 23:24. He's on the cross. He's got spikes driven in his hands and his feet. He's being ridiculed. He's being mocked. He's being spit on. And he says, what at this time? Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. Forgive them. If he can do that, I can do that. You can do that. Forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. A lot of times that's the case. When somebody is mad at you or mean to you, they don't know what they're doing. And if we put that mindset in our minds that they don't know what they're doing, forgive them. No revenge, no retaliation. We need to have that attitude. After that, Jesus gives several examples of how God shows no difference, how he gives blessings to the saved and to the unsaved. Sunshine, rain, everybody gets it. He showers his blessings down on everybody. Yes, Cornell?
You love your enemies so much that you should lend them money without the thought of getting anything back.
Yep. Love your enemies without any restrictions. As you love yourself. Hard to do, very, very hard to do. Sunshine and rain, just and unjust. He ends this discussion of characteristics. He ends the 5th chapter of Matthew with one verse. Therefore you shall be perfect, just as your Father in heaven is perfect. I've told you a bunch of things, the characteristics of the citizens of the kingdom of God. Beatitudes, salt and light, obey the law, love your enemies, do all that. This is how I've told you you should be. And you'll be perfect. A lot of it's not easy, but that's what he wants us to do. So he ends chapter 5 with this verse. Therefore, I've always been told that when the word therefore is there, it's there for a reason. Why he says therefore, I'm including this for a reason. Therefore, you'll be perfect. If you obey these things, if you do these simple little things that I put out in the 5th chapter of Matthew. So that ends the 5th chapter of Matthew. In this chapter, he tells us what we need to be to please God. We need to be this kind of people. Everything's included. That's what we need to be. I encourage you all to reread the 5th chapter of Matthew this week and think about it, am I having trouble with this point, with this point, with this one, there's some of this that I need to work on. Look at, because this is what we need to be. This is what the citizens of the kingdom, what they're going to be like. We're going to go into chapter 6 next week. And there we're going to look at, thought I had that one. We're going to look at a Christian's religion in the 6th chapter. She starts on a little bit different topic. We're going to look at what we need to do. We know how we're supposed to be now. We're supposed to be like chapter 5. In chapter 6, he's going to tell us what we need to do with it now when we get to chapter 6. Y'all have a wonderful week. The Lord bless you and keep you, make his face to shine upon you and give you peace. Go in peace.